Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back. So I mentioned this in my Dragon Quest Monsters game plan video, but basically one of the biggest aims of this channel when we have any significant game launches is to sort of grab some of those new fans of the channel and point them in the direction of other monster taming games that they might like based on the game in question as well. Now, Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince hype is definitely not over, but I wanted to introduce some of you guys who maybe are newer to the channel to some of the monster taming games that you might find interesting if you are a fan of the Dragon Quest Monsters series. If you're a longtime fan of the channel, you've undoubtedly heard of these games since I've covered all of them. However, this will be the first time that I'm looking at them through the lens of how they're similar in one way or another to Dragon Quest Monsters. Some of them have more similarities than others. However, I do think that each of these has its own appeal that would relate to that type of monster taming fan. We've got some retro style games, some newer 3D titles, and more, so make sure to sit back, relax, subscribe for daily monster taming videos, and let's dive in. Okay, so I'm pretty sure anybody who's watched my channel saw this one coming, just because of the vast amount of similarities there are. I've even mentioned it before, but if you're a fan of Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince, I think you will really enjoy Shin Megami Tensei 5. Both games feature a 4-on-4 combat system, obviously each of them having their differences. Both games having a similar fusion system in that fusing two monsters creates a new one. Both games have segmented open worlds and more. It's no secret that the Megami Tensei series and Dragon Quest are both franchises that act as grandfathers to the monster taming genre, and honestly both of their most recent titles have just been amazing. If you're looking for something with a complex battle system, a more mature undertone, and some great gameplay, this will definitely be the game for you to pick up. If you're looking for a more retro-themed monster taming game with a ton of complexity, multi-battle combat, but in this case 6-on-6, true fusion, and more, look no further than Siralim Ultimate, the fourth major installment in the monster taming dungeon crawling series, Siralim. This game is a lot less story-focused and has a lot of similarities to the original Dragon Quest monsters, or Dragon Warrior monsters for us in the West, as this game focuses around a central hub and it has you exploring randomly generated worlds full of monsters, loots, and subquests for you to take on. The game also has a very robust fusion system in that you can take any two monsters and fuse them together in order to create a true hybrid form. You also have various classes that you can set up for your character that come with their own buffs, spell gems which allow you to grant moves on your monsters, artifacts which grant extra perks, and more. I've mentioned this game a lot on the channel, but it is truly a titan in terms of indie monster taming games as far as complexity is concerned. So if you're looking for something that has a massive skill ceiling when it comes to team building and combat, you should definitely be checking out this game. The next game on this list, much like Dragon Quest Monsters, is a spin-off of its own series, that being Monster Hunter Stories 2: Wings of Ruin. Much like Dragon Quest Monsters, this is a segmented open-world monster taming RPG, which in this case allows you to fight alongside your monsters in battle. I will say that the combat isn't nearly as complex as Dragon Quest Monsters. However, there are a few things that make this game quite unique, like the Rite of Channeling that acts as sort of like a light fusion system, in that it allows you to take moves from one monster and add them to another. You also got a lot of control over your own character's weapons and armor, allowing for you to make some really fun combinations. One thing that this game does that I really wish The Dark Prince did is that it has mounts, allowing you to utilize some of your favorite monsters as a means for transportation. The game's really fun, it's got a great art style, it does have some combat depth, and all in all it's a good time. I think if you enjoyed The Dark Prince, you'll probably enjoy this game as it features fun combat, a lot of puns, exploration, randomized dungeons, and more. Next up, we have Cassette Beast, which is a game that I would honestly put up against Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince for the title of Best Monster Taming Game in 2023, but that's just me. Cassette Beast is an open-world pixel art RPG that includes a ton of content and even has a fusion mechanic of its own. In this game, you can actually fuse any two monsters together during battle in order to create a completely unique algorithmic fusion combination. There are well over 10,000 different fusions that can be created from the roughly 130 monsters present within the game. The combat in this game is also an easy to learn, hard to master type situation as well, with there being tons of stickers that different cassettes can have applied to them to change their moves, both active and passive. And all of this takes place in this sort of eerie, uncanny world where things seem right on the surface until you just dig a little bit below it. I highly recommend Cassette Beast to any monster taming fan, but specifically for Dragon Quest fans, I think you'll have a lot of fun uncovering some of the fusions and enjoying the complexity that the battle system has to offer. Finally, last but not least, we have Disc Creatures, which also has a sequel in the works in the form of Disc Creatures World. Now, that being said, the original Disc Creatures, which is out on Steam right now, isn't super similar to Dragon Quest Monsters in terms of its mechanics, but more so reminds me of the original Dragon Quest Monsters in terms of its battles and aesthetic. I've played a little bit of Dragon Quest Monsters for the Game Boy, the original one. It's called Dragon Warrior Monsters in the West, and I've played it a little bit on and off the channel. It's really a classic. If you want a monster taming game that takes you back and gives you those sort of Dragon Quest Monsters vibes, I do recommend checking out Disc Creatures, though admittedly, from what I've played so far, I didn't see any fusion mechanics or anything like that. The sequel version, Disc Creatures World, will also be taking the game into a sort of Game Boy Advance-esque aesthetic, which is also something to look forward to. And there you go, guys. Those are 5 games you should definitely check out if you enjoyed Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, whether you're still playing through it or just grinding the post-game or maybe looking for something new. Definitely subscribe to this channel because I put out daily monster taming videos. I'll definitely be keeping you guys up to date on any news regarding Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince or any future Dragon Quest Monsters titles, because those are definitely coming. We'll also keep you up to date on all the monster taming news, and yeah, you can also check out my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, channel memberships, all linked below. Special thanks to our supporters, especially Jim Hamilton, Drove Ghost, Candy Morency, and Tragsoft, and I'll see you next time. Peace.